define, oh, remember the recording. Okay. Hi. Sorry, Allison, I forgot to remind you. So,
Sorry to interrupt.
no problem. So the starting phase is to kind of get the executive director, maybe some senior staff members and the board chair, kind of a few people together and kind of say, okay, what's the desired outcome of the strategic planning process? And then after that, we identify who will be a part of the strategic planning process. As I said, often that's the board members and senior staff members. And I just do a series of online calls with the organization in kind of threes and fours, just smaller groups to understand from them what are their strengths, what do they see as the strengths and challenges of the organization. And then after that, we have an in-person offsite with the board and senior staff members and get into the cover story work and the 5 or 6 headlines that I mentioned. Then usually we get to the end of that offsite and we haven't really gotten down to saying, okay, now what's our time frame for these 5 or 6 things we want to accomplish? Who's going to be responsible? And really getting down to the meat and bones of how we're going to accomplish those things. So we usually have 2 or 3 follow-up online Zoom meetings in the intervening weeks to kind of get down and dirty to really say, okay, what is that real action plan? And some of the results that I've seen is you're improving collaboration because you're really working together with the board, with the staff, and collaborating on what you want your future to be together. You're developing clarity and alignment on that path forward. And you have some practical tools of a brief, practical, actionable roadmap. And we'll go into what that looks like as we move forward. So I'm going to just stop sharing then again and just ask if there are any questions at this point anyone wants to kind of put in the chat, or we can certainly come off and do that too. Are there any questions of kind of the overview of what this is about? Can we get a copy of the slides? Absolutely. We'll be sending a copy of the slides. I'll give them at the end of the session. And I think Allison will be sending them out too. I'll put them in chat at the end of the session, and then Allison will be sending them out. Yeah. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is I'm going to ask you to be a part of a nonprofit together. And so I'll give you a few facts for that. So I'm going to ask you to kind of do some play acting together, and we're going to split out into a breakout room in a second. But let me give you a few facts of the nonprofit that you're going to be together. And don't worry what your role is, whether you're executive director or whether you're whether you're a board member or what your actual role is. So let me just give you kind of some facts of that to start with. And here we go. I'm going to share again for that. So again, you're going to be getting together now in a second, and we're going to be asking you to come up with that basic cover story title. And here's the nonprofit that you're going to be. Just the slides are having trouble advancing. There we go. So you're going to be a part of a theater company called Bards and Beams. You're all board and staff members of this community theater company. Again, you're going to go in breakout rooms in a second to get to talk about this. They own and operate a small local theater, primarily staging their own productions. B&B has been actively producing 3 plays, musicals a year for the past 20 years. In addition to the executive director, there are 2 full-time and 2 part-time employees and a volunteer board of 12 members. The executive director and board chair have a long and mostly collaborative working relationship. 10 of the 12 board members the executive director, and the vice president of development will be participating in this process. 10, because I often find that not all the board members necessarily sign up for this, but hopefully all of them will in your case. Then, if you remember what I said kind of for my phase one, we would have had some small group discussions online with 3 or 4 people on each of them to just kind of get an idea of what the strengths and the challenges are of the organization before we get into an offsite meeting together. And so in this case, with Bards and Beams, the theater company, the strengths, they really feel good about some of the things they've recently accomplished, some capital improvements, some staff additions, expanded outreach. They really feel they have a good mutual respect among the board and the staff, a long history of local community support. So they're really supported by the community. And they really have a common interest in completing the capital improvements to the theater. That's been a real important goal for them to finish. Some of their challenges, like most theaters, coming out of COVID, they're having trouble getting audiences, funding, and just even post-COVID engagement. So that's still an issue for them. They have limited people resources. I'm sure none of you are in that situation in terms of volunteers, staff, board, and patrons. They have financial resources decisions and future stewardship that is really on their minds. Timing and expense of capital improvements. While they have a desire to do them, they really need to figure out the timing and expense. And they need to expand the fundraising efforts. Excuse me, I went backwards, sorry. And they need to expand the fundraising efforts, possibly including legacy giving. And finally, they want to improve their governance and role clarity of the committee structure of the boards, the oversight, as well as the staff role clarity. So I'm sure some of these things sound familiar. What I'm going to ask you to do in a second is, and I will post these facts in the chat so you'll have them. What I'm going to ask you to do in a second is to split up into breakout rooms. And you've seen the strengths and challenges of the organization. We're going to ask you to just spend about 15 minutes coming up with just a cover story headline. So again, that's one sentence of what would be a title of a cover story in 5 years of a vision for what this theater company could be in 5 years. Don't worry about the other headline strategies at this point. So I'm gonna stop sharing and post those into the chat and just ask while I'm doing this if anyone has any questions on what they're going to be asked to do here in a second, to split out into breakout rooms. You'll be in there with about 4 or 5 people, and to just come up with this cover story for this theater company that you all are the board, you're all on the board or on the staff of. Does anyone have any questions? You can come off mute if you have a question or put it in the chat. And I am going to put these in the chat so that you have them. If I can figure out how to do this. Okay, so I just posted that into the chat, and I just posted that into the chat. You won't be able to access the chat once you get into breakout rooms. So if you want, go ahead and open up that file I just posted, or just copy the whole chat, whichever you like. So is anyone having trouble seeing that in the chat? I see many people looking at their screens. It's just the slides we just looked at. There's no file in the chat. Well, Well, you know why? Because I have to actually push for the chat. I have to push this little key down here that says that it goes in the chat. Try that. It would help if I actually pushed it. So thanks. Okay, does everyone see that? Does anyone not see that now? Okay, so go ahead and download that um, or take that or take a copy of the chat, whichever you want, or just open the file and it should be there. So you'll then be able to see that on your computer when you're in breakout rooms. Again, it's the same slides that we just talked about. The objective for you, though, today is to just come up with the cover story, one sentence headline of what the big picture vision is going to be for this theater company in 5 years. So Tanaya, are we ready for breakout rooms? I see you shaking your head. Okay, good. So if everyone is ready, we're going to go ahead and get into breakout rooms. You'll have about 15 minutes, then we'll come back and talk about that. Go ahead, Tanaya. I think that person just didn't may not be online, so that's fine. And we know Allison isn't. So
Okay.
if you
Well, I
want to
thought it was
go,
gonna
if you
push me
if you
into a room.
if you want, you well no, it should give you a
Oh,
notice saying go in. So
yeah,
you
it
need to.
didn't. Okay.
It
So,
didn't. So you can put yourself in a room then if you want.
um,
It
how
it
do I
it
do
gave me
that?
an it gave me a notice to join the breakout room, but I'm
Really?
not going to obviously.
Right.
So
Let me, how do I, oh, I could just hit join. Okay. I'll just hit join. No problem. Someone that has not.
and hopefully they'll all come back. It's clicking down, so I think they will.
Can I still?
That's right. I just turned the recording back on too. So we were just coming back from breakout rooms.
To my group, sorry, I hit the leave button instead of the close button. So sorry, I left mid-sentence.
No worries, thanks.
Well, good. So it looks like everyone's back. So what I'd love for you to do is, and I probably I should have told you this before, but if one of you could just put in for your group, kind of what your big cover story is, if you hopefully you got that far, and go ahead and just put in the chat what your cover story is. That would be great. And if you see that someone from your group has already started to do it, why don't you let them do it? But if I'll tell you what, why don't you do this? Could you, yeah, so go ahead and just put that into chat. Go ahead and just put that into chat.
Kendall, did you want to do that or do you want me to start that?
You can go ahead if you're ready.
And if anyone else needs to coordinate, I see, is it Krister?
Yeah, it's Krister.
Krister? Okay, Krister, great.
Oh, what was your
I
question?
love it.
Yeah, good, thank you.
So no, that's great. We'll get to that in a second. So if anyone needs to coordinate just verbally here as to who's going to write it into chat, please do. We'll give you a minute to do that.
Is anyone in our group putting something in right now? I know we didn't quite get the whole sentence written, or we'll try to come up with something.
Okay, we'll make
Okay,
it.
we're gonna type something up here.
Perfect. Thank you for taking the lead on that.
I'm sorry, are we supposed to be putting our kind of headlines into the chat? Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay,
Please
gotcha.
put your headline. So if you want to do that for your group, that'd be great.
But not the smaller ones, just the big
No,
one.
just the big one. Just the big one. Just the big one. So, Chris, there's you can see what she did there. I love the bees. Except you need one for community, you know, builds. Broad and bodacious community. Great. Thank you. So go ahead and read those in chat. I'll read those in a second. I think there's one more. Is the last group, is someone writing it up for the last group? Or did you get to that point?
There, I just put it in. Ours was more forward thinking than not. So maybe we were off with that, but it's there anyway.
Okay. Well, no, that's great. Well, I actually, I'm just going to pick on each of you who wrote these in to read yours. So, Krista, would you go ahead and read yours for everyone?
Absolutely. And shout out to my team members. You are amazing. They hit the ground running.
So who was your team? Who was in your team?
So we had oh wait, everybody moved. we have Rashonda and we had was it Blanche? Were you with us? Right? No? Yes, you were. So lights, camera, action. Due to the generosity of several new legacy donors, the B&B Theater hosted 5 new plays that celebrate their community's dynamic cultural background in their newly renovated space.
I love it. And that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all for participating in that. And then Sister Kathy Phillips put that one in.
Okay, so we were evolving, so we just desperately wrote something here. Our apologies to our partners who were Kenyatta and
Maria
and Rebecca. Yeah, so well, okay, this was our desperate attempt. Bards and Beams brings Broadway to Branford, builds community. We're just, big banner headline. And what we were trying to encompass was, that idea that by attracting, let's say, one or more touring, Broadway touring companies, it would increase interest beyond those who were already participant and engaged, and that would also help with the finances. We couldn't quite get a way to say that also the enhanced facility, because that's another goal that they have. But anyway, that was our thought.
It was kind of unfinished, but that's how we
very
started.
unfinished. Very unfinished.
Yeah, no, but it's great. It's a good broad vision, broad bodacious vision to continue your bees. So great. Helene, would you like to tell us who your team members were
Sure.
and read yours to us?
Sure, we had Kendall Driffin, Jonathan Savage, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, Ifa Michelle?
Ife.
Ife Michelle, okay. Thank you. Bards and Beams celebrates its 25th anniversary in the theater industry, delivering cultural and community access and engagement, and is excited to open its current season in its state-of-the-art facility and to announce its new endowment fund. So we really wanted to focus on the fact that the capital improvements had been completed, that we are celebrating our long-standing position in the community, and that from a financial perspective, we're looking at the long term down the road by establishing an endowment fund.
I love it. That covers a lot of territory. Thank you all. And thanks, Helene, for reading that. And Anne, how about you for the last one?
Sure. So I was in a group with Tanaya and JNL. So we understood the assignment to kind of be a statement about what's to come, right? Based on strengths and challenges. So as we were talking, we really focused on community engagement. We talked about how do we engage people with possibly disabilities who may not be, taking advantage of the offerings. But what we came down to is just 3 shows a year isn't enough. So we want to say we're going to do more. So we said B&B has recently completed a capital campaign for the theater and hopes to raise $1 million. That's a made up number to be able to offer 4 shows a year and introduce transitional programming, including workshops and educational offerings. So we wanted to say what we were going to do going forward, and then back that up with the ask.
I love it. That's great. That's great. Oh, well, thank you all for playing. These are wonderful visions. So if we were together in the room and have done this and split up into smaller groups and come back, we would then sit down together. It's a little hard to do online and say, okay, so taking the compilation of these, what do we want to come up with then for our whole group? Because there's a lot of great ideas, and you see some similarity here. There was certainly some on building endowment or having some bigger gifts down the road. The 25th anniversary. So there would be a lot of things that if we had the chance and we had a little more time and we were in a room together, we'd be combining this statement now and coming up with what was our common statement. And what I've done with some groups too is I've had them even draw a picture too of what would be kind of some of the pictures that you would see as companions to this article. So since though we don't have a chance quite to do that because of time and the logistics of not being together, I took the liberty, I'm going to share once again here. I took the liberty of putting in what might be a cover story for us. So let's assume that this is what we came up with. Not that this is right or anything, but B&B in new state-of-the-art theater has show heading to Broadway and received $1 million bequest. So, so that's kind of the big vision out there. And that would be, after the compilation, and that incorporates some of the things that you all, said here. Some had the theater in there, some had, getting a good gift down the road, etc. So, so that's kind of phase 1. Come up with that big vision 5 years out. You can see this is kind of a fun way to do it. Think of it as a newspaper cover story. I went into each of your meetings and it was great to just hear the conversation going on, and you all were jumping right in there. So thanks for playing. So next we have kind of another fun one to play with. It would be an exercise that we would do if we were in the in-person meeting, and we're going to give it a try online. So I'm going to show you the next slide here. And you'll see some different constituents. So can everyone see that slide pretty well? Okay. I know that the print might be a little small there, but you can see these are some different voices, if you will, in your organization. And again, we're still with the theater company, so we might have the voice of the executive director, or of the stage director, or of the board, or of the former member, or an audience, or the staff and crew, the members, donors, and sponsors, or even the actors themselves. So this may not be all the voices. There might be some other voices that I'm missing that are out there. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to kind of jump in now. Now we're going to the phase of, okay, now let's say you've got this big cover story vision. How do we get there? Let's bring in some of the different voices here. And I'm going to ask you now to play some of these different voices. Some of them you may be more familiar with. Some of them you may not be as familiar with. But to step in and actually give a voice to give some of these different voices. So I'm going to go back now. I'll bring this up if we need it again. But kind of think of some of these different voices and pick one. Just kind of envision yourself, if we were in a room, these would be placed on the floor, these different voices, and you'd be walking around the room and you could say, okay, so what of these voices do I feel compelled to speak from first? So envision yourself in the room together, all of us in the room together, and go kind of envision yourself standing by one of these voices. Okay, if everyone's chosen one, I'm going to stop the sharing, and I'll certainly put it up again if we need to, but then we can see our faces. Okay, so go ahead and come off mute. And do I have a volunteer who would like to start in from one of those voices and tell us what you see as to how we get to that big vision? So go ahead and come off mute.
All right, audience member.
Yes.
I just want to know what you have to offer.
And so what would be what's your voice? And I just see JNL. Tell me your name.
Jamal.
Jamal. Okay. Jamal, tell me, what do you, from an audience member standpoint, and you've seen that this is the big vision that we want to achieve in 5 years. Tell us from an audience member what your perspective is.
Something that's not traditional, something that's gonna keep me influenced.
What's not traditional? Tell me what's not traditional. What would you love?
Nothing too spontaneous, because people people have issues with their eyes, so it's a lot of other features that goes on that we have to pay attention to that doesn't draw people back. It's a lot behind that. Maybe I'm going too far.
So you want something that's going to draw you, that's not traditional as an audience member. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and that doesn't affect people, or how they have the new chairs where it vibrates, something that doesn't shock anybody when they don't want to flip out and run out and cause a big panic. Right, you get what I'm saying? I want to engage with you as a director to keep the show going.
Okay, great. You as the audience member want to engage with the director. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
I love it. I love it. That's great. So Jamal mentioned the director. So I'm pretty, one of those categories was the stage director. Would someone like to jump into the stage director spot and respond to Jamal and tell us what you would like to do?
Oh, stage director caught my eye. I'm not exactly sure why, but I was thinking as a stage director, knowing this is a goal, I would be thinking, how are we going to get this talent, to be able to send a show to Broadway? We're really going to need to work with our base, our pool of people coming to be in the show. So I don't know if I can direct that to the audience member, but maybe in a way, like as a director, I would say we're going to really need to do recruiting and, make it known to people that we're looking for talent. I don't know.
I love it. So you're saying that really finding the talent is really important from a stage director standpoint. Is there another role that would like to respond to that?
Actually, I'll respond. I'm sorry.
Tanaya, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll respond because actually I chose actor.
Okay.
So, and I chose actor thinking about, if you want to get to Broadway on an actor's resume, that would be wonderful to say I started here and then moved there, kind of moved up. But I think that in order to do that as an actor, I would need to challenge myself in my craft. So it would really be the play, what type of production they'll be putting on. Was my thought in order to get it to Broadway, to get that Broadway level, I need to improve my skills or be able to show my skills in a production.
I love it. That's great. That's great from the actor's perspective. Ife, I thought you were trying to jump in there too, were you? Okay. Rashonda? Go ahead, Rashonda.
I guess I don't know what role, but possibly the executive director. And it relates to what Tanaya was saying about honing in on or like improving your skills as an actor. And I was thinking about maybe hosting a theater camp and inviting local talent to participate with the goal of bringing in community members that would then be actors in some of the performances.
I love it. That's great. That's great. So there's a new idea put out there. I love it. So what other voices do we need to hear from?
So
Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
I was also going to say executive director, and I love the idea of the theater camp. But as the executive director, sort of guiding your staff to collectively combine their skills and their networks to create the programming, like design and create the program like Bashonda just said, as well as sort of I don't know, I want to say do some community data on the audience and different audiences that you may want to serve. And maybe have like children's theater on Saturday mornings, and then something for seniors and matinees, and then like other kinds of of theater for different evening shows for everybody else, but just try to diversify and engage the greater community that you're in. But also utilize help your staff use their talents and skills to help design this thing.
to use their talents, including the actors and so on too, right? Yeah. I love it. I love it. Thank you. And we've got a couple hands raised here. Jonathan, do you want to go for it?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, all right, perfect. I'm on my headphones. So I would, I guess I kind of like to speak from two roles, and not necessarily so much in specifics, but like from the executive director role, I I I find that function, and I'm new into this role just for background, but I'm finding that the role of executive director, as much as it is a leadership role, it's also a support role within the organization, and I've been finding like my main role is support. So in this process as executive director, I would be looking towards my directors and management staff to look to them to tell me what support is needed, what is needed for us to really, what are their goals within this not organizational mission, but this kind of like this mission that we're moving on, the strategic mission, strategic plan. What is my, what do you need from me to support your work to get it done, right? What does the stage director need from me as a support person? What do I need to bring to the table for you to be able to do your job as well as possible? And then from the kind of staff kind of management side, whether it's stage manager or stage director, really being open about the need to deliver this work, right? And whether that means that I'm going to do a community outreach kind of panel and bring in a group of community leaders that are going to kind of have a real good handle on the community and how they can let us know what's needed. Our organizational partners, what do you guys need? How can we support each other? What do you have to deliver to us? What can we deliver to you in exchange? So really kind of growing up in terms of really a highly communicated community of leadership, staff, and partners, whether it be community members who are coming to our programming or shows, or our community partners who are actually kind of working with us to deliver this, and we're helping them to deliver their programmatic goals. So I guess really overall across both of those roles, I'm just thinking about communication and really kind of literal and accurate communication, everything on the table, because the more that we can get out on the table about micro needs, macro needs, the more we're going to be able to kind of fill that endowment, or really kind of reach out to the community to bring people in and get the support that we need, garner the support we need.
I love it. Thank you, Jonathan. That's a lot of good information and a lot of good voices from the executive director as well as other roles. So go ahead, Chrysler, what do you have?
I picked a board member, and similarly to what Jonathan was saying about ED serves as a supportive role as much as it is a leadership role. As a board member, I would want to know what it is that how it is that I can support, because within my role as a board member, it is not just fiduciary responsibility, the financials of it, but it's also being an ambassador to the programs and to be a voice in my networks, right? So that I can expand the reach of the organization within my networks, but also serve as an active ambassador. So that might look like meeting with the executive director, maybe being part of a committee, that maybe they create a committee that is about outreach to the community. I can be a part of that conversation. I can bring in to some of their programming. I can attend, but not only can I attend, I can also bring and organize some other folks to come with me who may be able to experience the program, who might be interested in the program, who might become volunteers, donors, supporters, and really work with the program team and the executive director to see what the elevator pitch is for me, so that I can get as many folks as I can into the space, so that their reach, both in terms of like people knowing they exist, the programs that are available, but also it might initiate from those folks a desire to continue to be part of the conversation, to continue to be part as a volunteer, as a donor, an actor, as a support staff, right? So being able to provide, similarly to Jonathan was saying, which is, it is still a very supportive process, but it is, what is it that you need from me? And often I find with board members, it is really about broadcasting the work of the organization and utilizing those networks that we already have to highlight the capacity of the work that's being done to a better degree.
The flight at 4:30.
That's great. Annie, I think thank you for those, for all those comments. That's great. I love the board, from the board members' perspective. Annie, I think you're next. What do you
Okay, I'm
have for us?
sorry.
No problem.
I want to apologize for being late and just speaking just now. I forgot I was off mute, and I'm on my way to the airport. That's why my camera's off.
Okay.
I would come in. My question would be, as a community member, to not just the executive director, but the board, to really consider the programs that are being presented. Who, not just the outreach, but who are the actors? What are the stories that are being told? Are they representative of all communities? And when hiring people, staff people, but also the actors at all levels, that people are being hired not just in token positions, but in positions that are of value and they're getting paid and all things like that. So what is it that needs to be done to make sure that when we talk about diversity, you're getting a diversity in all parts, in the board, in the cast, the staffing, and what else, and that, and within the programming. So there's plenty. That when I want to go see a program, I want to make sure that it represents me and my people and all people, especially when it comes to people of color, because historically, people of color have not been part of it. And that also, be prepared. How do you prepare for the backlash? And when I think about the backlash, I think about the Little Mermaid. A Black actress was asked to be the Little Mermaid, and all the backlash that came with that. And so the people have to also consider, how do you prepare for some of the backlash that happens when folks are truly vested in diversity and equity and inclusion and anti-racism work. It comes with a lot of backlash. So that would be some of my questions.
Great, Annie. No, those are really important pieces, and your example there is one that I think most of us know too. So thank you. Kenyatta, you had your hand raised.
Yes. As executive director, I will try to make sure I put at the forefront accessibility for all audiences, those that have handicaps, those with disabilities, to make sure the performances are accessible to them, whether they are hard of hearing, to have a sign language there, or rather the facilities itself are capable of handling audiences that may have disabilities, whether it's a wheelchair or a walker or whatever the case may be. Also maybe include in their shows those with specific handicaps or different handicaps, to make sure that the performances and the facilities and everything is accessible as well to all those with different abilities. In this way, the board can go out and express, that our theater is capable of accessibility. We are here for everyone, and not just for just for a stereotypical or ordinary person. Just to make sure that's clear, so that all are included in this and everyone can see performances. So I will, as executive director, make sure that that is presented to our board so they can get out there and put that word across. Make sure we are hiring actors and actresses that can also be portrayed in audiences with those with disabilities. So that would be one of the forefronts for me.
Great. Thank you, Kenyatta. So did anyone else have their hand raised? Okay, I didn't see any more, and Tanaya is trying to help keep me honest here, so she's shaking her head that we didn't have any more. Is there? So thank you all for playing. What I hope you got a picture of here is the magic that this has from step into these different roles and give a voice to these roles. Some of these that may not have as much of a role sometimes, have as much of a voice sometimes. This is a way to do this within your organization. And we would do this as a part of the offsite and looking at the strategic planning. And we would continue this longer than we're able to today, because I want to make sure I get you all out of here by 1:30. So, but we would go through a few rounds of this, and in person, it's even more magical because you have, you can get some conversation going back and forth between the different roles. So just imagine that in the room with these different roles. So thank you for playing. For our purposes, though, what would happen from here is we would then, I'm going to share my screen again. Give me 1 second here. So we're back to this screen. We would then move on to some other activities if we were in person together, where we would harvest some of these themes that came up. You know, if you think of some of the themes that were just mentioned, making sure that we have roles for people of color, for people with disabilities, that we've represented the communities that we are performing for, all of the different views from executive directors, etc. So we would collect all of these themes and sit down and now come up with 5 or 6 goals out of those themes that came up in this discussion together that you just experienced. And we then would kind of prioritize those into 5 or 6 things that we really felt were important. And hopefully you all felt kind of the deeper context that some of the discussions started to take. Some of those discussions that maybe we don't have as frequently in our organizations to do that. And so this would be a chance to really say, okay, how important are some of these things next to each other? And come up with those 5 or 6 headlines. Prioritize those headlines. And so let me give you the example of the theater company. And again, I just made some up here. Of these would be kind of some sub headlines then that might come out of this. In addition to our big cover story, B&B has a budget surplus. A full-time artistic director hired at B&B. New fund at Community Foundation of Greater New Haven to support B&B. Had to put that in there since they're sponsoring this. We wanted to make sure that if Allison's back on. Industry award goes to B&B for new works. B&B, sorry, I went forward. B&B attracts audiences from all parts of Connecticut. So these would be kind of the 5, in this case, 5 headlines that would have been attracted. Some of these might be much different from the conversation that we had, but I just kind of put these down as examples. Then what would happen from there? So hopefully we would, by the end of this offsite meeting, come up with kind of these 5 things that we really wanted to focus on a little bit more. And it might not be exactly in this format. What would then happen is we would have some follow-up calls to come up with really a strategy of what do those mean. So one of those would be better management of income and expenses. And hopefully you can all see this, but Sarah raised her hand to say that she would help design what that means. And Joan, Ralph, and Gary all raised their hands to say they would implement that. That was a priority one for them. They wanted to start that on 10/5 and finish that project up by 5/1/25. And I'm sorry, again, I just keep moving to another slide here. So then what this would be is, this is just a one page to say, here are the 5 priorities. Again, these could be anything, but I wanted you to see an example of that. Here are the 5 priorities. And then as you get to your meetings, whether those are board meetings or staff meetings or both, you could then be filling in these other areas to say, okay, what percent are we complete with this? And filling in the updates. So, you know, Sarah and Joan got together and talked about, you know, about how they can manage the expenses better and et cetera. So these then would be specific tasks coming out of those headlines. Hiring the, boy, I just am having trouble here. Hiring the full-time artistic director, expanding the audience, increased fundraising, legacy efforts, gaining industry recognition, that kind of relate these tasks to those, if you will, headlines under the cover story. So that's the basic idea of how the simple strategic planning process works. And I'm going to just stop sharing at this point and ask if there are any questions from that. So does everyone kind of see how the work that we just did then fits into what I just showed you? That, you know, now creating those sub headlines, if you will, and then creating really a one-page list that helps you to actively put these into use. So if anyone has any questions at this point, if you want to raise your hand or just take it off mute and start speaking. Yes, Sister Catherine.
Could you speak briefly to the difference between the role of designer and implementer? I was interested in that.
Yeah, designer might be, okay, so Sarah, it's kind of the one who takes the lead is really what the designer would be. So who takes the lead to get those other 3 together, to come up with the ideas, maybe writes up the ideas that they have, and then maybe reports back to the board or the staff on how they're doing with that. So it's really kind of the lead person, if you will. Does that make sense? Okay. Other questions? Well, great. Well, I just want to thank all of you for, you know, we're not quite done, but I wanted to thank all of you for being a part of this today and just playing with this. And, you know, you really dived into that example that we went through in the theater company, and some of the thoughts that you had. I just wish I could get them all down, and that we were working together on this with a real nonprofit. What I'd love to just let you know is I'm going to go ahead and put in the slides into there, so you'll have the whole slide deck, and also just a little write up on the services that I offer here. Just kind of describing the process in a one page. It just tells a little bit about that, and then before I pass it back to Allison to give a little bit of detail on how the Community Foundation will support this effort. You know, I just let you know that I'd be happy to talk to any of you about this process, and how this gets going. The Community Foundation will fund this process as well, and I have a special rate that I charge for nonprofits related to Community Foundation, and I'm even reducing that further for those that sign up, at least sign up to go forward with this in the month of October. It doesn't mean you have to start the work in October, but to at least commit to it. So before I do that, though, what I'd love for you to do is to write into chat. You had a chance to impact each other today, and I'd just like you to write into chat who you appreciated today as a part of getting to know each other in breakout rooms or the big picture. And it can't be me, it's each other. Who did you appreciate today? Just write that into chat. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and put those other documents into chat.
Tanea, appreciation for Tanea. And I'll share with folks that I had to hop out, and Tanea was handling everything behind the scenes, getting everyone in breakouts. Thank you so much to her. It's wonderful.
And I see some people put people into chat there, some comments into chat. Thank you. I did just also post the slides there. So tell me if you can't see those. And then I wanted to just post the kind of one pager that tells about some of this work too. So you all would have that.
So great to see the compliments rolling in the chat. So nice. We love this about the capacity building workshops. Probably, the content is so important and you learn a lot, but the connections that you get to make with each other, with your peers, is invaluable too. So thank you to Tim for your time and your expertise and your knowledge today. I wanted to share, as Tim sort of mentioned, that the Community Foundation is excited to be able to support your organizations in completing strategic planning process. And as Tim said, he's offering a tremendous value for participants in this program and his services to go through the process that he's described for you today. And some of you know that we have a consultant support program where we can provide resources to help you to engage with a consultant or to engage with Tim in this process. And I will be emailing all of you the slide deck, the recording from today, and some more information about that consultant support program. We have a very simple application process. I will be able to talk with you if you're interested in moving forward after this and in taking advantage of the opportunity to work with Tim and get something underway this month or coming up. I would love to hear what you have in mind, and I can guide you through the process of applying for consultant support funding to cover the cost of that. So we're really excited to be able to connect all the dots and see your learning today culminate in action and steps forward for your organizations.
Great, and thank you, Allison, for sponsoring this, and for Tanea for doing the breakout rooms and helping keep me in line. And I want to thank all of you for participating. We do have another few minutes if anyone has any questions, if they want to come off mute or put it into the chat. And I hope that all of you see the appreciation for each other in the chat. And that's so important. And thank you for jumping in and playing together. So I think we are probably at the end. We got you out in time, and thank you so much for participating. Happy to just have a side conversation with anyone if you want to just understand more about this work. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a
Bye-bye,
good
everyone.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Wonderful. I'll be emailing out all the materials in just a little bit.
That's great. And if you know, if you want to, you could mail out both my slide deck that I put in there and I sent to you, but also I did have that kind of one page or two that tells people a little bit about just kind of gives a summary. So that'd be
You
great.
got it. I'm happy to do it.
Thanks,
Thanks
Allison.
again. It was
Thanks,
wonderful.
Tanaya. You bet. You bet. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.